My mother handed me the nursing school brochure between the salad course and the main course. She'd actually printed it, full color, glossy pages, with a yellow sticky note on the front that read, "Thinking of you," in her loopy handwriting with a heart drawn underneath. She'd brought it to Christmas dinner like a gift. I looked at the smiling woman in scrubs on the cover, then at my mother, who was watching me with the hopeful expression of someone presenting a solution to a problem she'd diagnosed years ago. "It's a 2-year program," she said, tapping the brochure with a manicured nail. "Very practical. Excellent job placement. And the starting salary is quite good these days." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Better than whatever you're making now, I'm sure." 26 family members were seated around the extended dining table in my parents' home in Darien, Connecticut. The house smelled like pine needles and rosemary lamb, the meal my mother made every Christmas because she'd seen it in a magazine in 2009 and decided it was our tradition. The chandelier cast warm light over faces I'd known my entire life, most of them currently pretending they couldn't hear the conversation about my career failures. My name is Sophie Lang. I'm 32 years old, and my mother had just handed me a nursing school brochure at Christmas dinner because she genuinely believed it represented an upgrade from my current situation. My current situation, as far as this table understood it, was this. I ran a small health and wellness consultancy from my apartment, a one-woman operation, some freelance work for supplement companies, a bit of product testing, occasional contract research. Nothing impressive. Nothing worth discussing at dinner parties. Nothing that would make a mother proud. What my family didn't know was that the small health and wellness consultancy was a cover story for Meridian Biosciences, a biotechnology company I'd founded 7 years ago that held 43 patents, employed 312 people across 2 research facilities, had $224 million in annual revenue, and was scheduled to begin trading on the NASDAQ stock exchange in exactly 11 days. In 11 days, the opening bell would ring, the ticker symbol MRDN would flash across every financial screen in the world, and my company would enter the public markets at a projected valuation of $3.4 billion. But right now, at this table, I was the daughter who needed a nursing school brochure. I set it beside my plate. "Thank you, Mom. I'll look at it." She beamed. My brother Alex, a cardiologist at Yale New Haven Hospital, nodded approvingly from across the table. He was wearing the tie our parents had given him last Christmas, the one with the tiny stethoscopes on it, which he thought was charming, and I thought was the sartorial equivalent of a vanity license plate. "Good for you, Soph," he said. "Healthcare is a great field. Stable, meaningful. You'd be helping people. Unlike whatever it is you do now," his tone implied without saying. My father, retired from a 40-year career in insurance, weighed in with the measured authority of a man who'd spent 4 decades assessing risk. "It's never too late to find direction, Sophie. Your mother and I just want to see you settled." Settled. The word they used when they meant successful by their standards. Married, employed by an institution, contributing to a 401k, living a life that could be summarized in a single sentence at a neighborhood barbecue. My cousin Lauren, a pharmaceutical sales rep who'd recently been promoted to regional manager and would not stop mentioning it, leaned in. "Soph, honestly, I could probably get you a foot in the door at Pfizer. They have wellness programs, corporate health stuff. It's not exactly consulting, but it's a real company with real benefits. A real company. I thought about Meridian's 2 research facilities, the 312 employees, the 43 patents, the FDA approval we'd received 8 months ago for a diagnostic technology that was going to change how hospitals detect early-stage cancers. Real enough. I'll think about it, I said. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look at it, but I knew what was coming. My CFO, Marcus Webb, had been coordinating with our investment bankers all week on the final preparations for the IPO. The NASDAQ listing ceremony was scheduled for January 6th. Tonight, December 25th, the final regulatory confirmation was expected. If that confirmation came through, Meridian Biosciences would officially be cleared for public trading. And based on Marcus's texts throughout the day, the confirmation was imminent. It was 7:48 p.m. My mother was explaining to Aunt Catherine why nursing was such a wonderful profession for women specifically. It's caring work, she said. It's nurturing. It uses those natural strengths that women have. Sophie's always been the empathetic one in the family. Alex is brilliant, of course. That's why he's a doctor. But Sophie has more of a, she searched for the word, heart. The gendered division of her children's potential was so casual, so ingrained, that she didn't even hear herself doing it. Alex gets brilliant, I get heart. He gets doctor, I get nurse. He gets to diagnose, I get to care. The story of how I built a $3.4 billion biotechnology company while my family planned my nursing career starts with a microscope and a fury. After graduating from MIT with a dual degree in biomedical engineering and molecular biology, I spent 2 years as a research associate at a pharmaceutical company in Cambridge. I was 23. I was brilliant. I don't say that with arrogance. I say it because my supervisor told me directly and then passed me over for a promotion in favor of a male colleague whose research output was a third of mine. The reason? Delivered with the practiced diplomacy of someone who'd given this speech before, was that the promoted position required a certain leadership presence. When I asked what that meant, he said, and I'll never forget this, people need to feel like they're being led by someone authoritative. I stood outside the building that afternoon, staring at the Charles River, and made 2 decisions. First, I would never again let someone else determine the ceiling of my capability. Second, I would build something so undeniably excellent that authority would be irrelevant. Presence would be irrelevant. The only thing that would matter was the science. Meridian Biosciences began in a rented lab space in New Haven that I shared with a graduate student who studied yeast genetics. My starting capital was $32,000 in savings and the $50,000 small business loan that I'd secured using a business plan so detailed the bank officer told me it was the most thorough document he'd ever reviewed. My first project was a rapid diagnostic platform for detecting biomarkers associated with early-stage cancers. The technology used proprietary biosensor arrays that I developed during my time in Cambridge, adapted with improvements I'd been working on independently. The science was revolutionary. The business was non-existent. I had no investors, no revenue, no employees, and no idea how to run a company. What I had was a diagnostic tool that could detect cancer markers 18 months earlier than existing methods. That turned out to be enough. My first validation came from a small hospital in Hartford that agreed to trial the technology. The results were so significant that they published a paper. That paper attracted attention from a venture capital firm specializing in biotech. They invested $4 million. I used it to hire a team, expand the lab, and begin the FDA approval process that would take 4 excruciating years. During those 4 years, I told my family nothing. When they asked how the consulting was going, I said fine. When they asked if I was making money, I said enough. When they suggested career alternatives, I smiled and thanked them and went back to a lab where I was developing technology that would save thousands of lives. The FDA approval came 8 months ago. The day the letter arrived, I sat in my office and cried for 20 minutes. Not from joy, from relief. 4 years of trials, reviews, revisions, more trials, more reviews. 4 years of my family handing me brochures for careers they considered more appropriate for a woman with my temperament. And now I held a letter that said the United States government had officially recognized that my technology worked, that it was safe, that it was real. The revenue followed immediately. Hospitals couldn't adopt the technology fast enough. Within 6 months, Meridian's diagnostic platform was installed in 340 hospitals across the country. Annual revenue hit $224 million and was projected to double within 18 months. The IPO was the natural next step. Our investment bankers projected a market valuation of $3.4 billion on the first day of trading. My personal stake, 64%, would be worth approximately $2.18 billion, all while my mother printed nursing school brochures. 7:52 p.m. Dessert was being served. My mother's Christmas pudding, which she made from a recipe she'd gotten from a British cooking show and which nobody particularly liked, but everyone praised because that's what families do. Alex was talking about a procedure he'd performed that week, some complex cardiac case that he described with the performative modesty of someone who wanted everyone to know he was being modest about something extraordinary. My father listened with undisguised pride. My mother's eyes glistened. Lauren was texting under the table, probably telling someone about her Pfizer offer on my behalf. My phone buzzed again, then 3 times in rapid succession. I didn't look, not yet. Aunt Catherine was asking me about my apartment. "Are you still in that little place in New Haven?" "Still there," I said. "It's cozy," my mother offered, which was her way of saying small and sad. "You know, Alex's hospital has staff housing," Aunt Catherine suggested. "If you did go into nursing, you could probably get a subsidized apartment, much nicer than what you have now." I thought about the penthouse apartment I'd purchased 6 months ago through a holding company, the one with the view of the Manhattan skyline that I hadn't moved into yet because I was too busy running a company that was about to go public. Much nicer, I agreed. 7:58 p.m. 2 minutes. I excused myself to use the bathroom. On the way, I passed through the living room where the television was on, tuned to CNBC. My father kept it on during dinners because he liked to check stock tickers between courses, a habit from his insurance days. I turned the volume up slightly, not dramatically, just enough. Then I checked my phone. 4 messages from Marcus. First, final SEC clearance received at 7:41 p.m. We are officially approved for NASDAQ listing January 6th. Second, investment bankers confirming opening valuation of $3.4 billion. Third, CNBC has the story. They're running a special segment tonight. Their producer says 8 p.m. slot. 4th. Sophie, this is it. Congratulations. You built something extraordinary. I stared at the messages for 10 seconds. Then I typed back, "Thank you, Marcus. I'll be celebrating with Christmas pudding and a nursing school brochure." His response was immediate. The best origin stories always start with someone underestimating the hero. I walked back to the dining room and sat down, picked up my spoon, took a bite of Christmas pudding. It was 8 p.m. On the CNBC broadcast in the living room, the anchor's voice carried through the open doorway. In a developing story tonight, CNBC has learned that Meridian Biosciences, the revolutionary biotech firm behind one of the most significant cancer detection breakthroughs in decades, has received final SEC approval for its NASDAQ listing. The company is expected to debut at a valuation of $3.4 billion, making it one of the largest biotech IPOs in recent history.
My father's head turned first. He always listened for numbers on CNBC. $3.4 billion was the kind of number that made insurance men sit up straight. But what makes this story truly extraordinary, the anchor continued, is the woman behind it. Sophie Lang, a 32-year-old biomedical engineer from New Haven, Connecticut, founded Meridian Biosciences 7 years ago in a shared laboratory space. Tonight, she stands on the verge of becoming one of the wealthiest self-made women in American history. The photograph appeared on screen. My official corporate headshot. Tailored blazer, confident posture, standing in front of Meridian's research facility with the company logo behind me. The woman on that screen and the woman eating Christmas pudding in a cable-knit sweater were the same person. The silence was violent. It didn't creep into the room. It detonated. 26 people stopped existing as individuals and became a single organism of shock. Forks froze. Mouths opened. Eyes widened to dimensions I didn't know eyes could reach. My mother's spoon clattered into her pudding bowl, splattering custard across the tablecloth. Alex's medical training, all those years of staying calm in emergencies, failed him completely. His face went through 6 expressions in 3 seconds, none of them dignified. Lauren dropped her phone. Aunt Catherine grabbed the table edge like the room was spinning. My father stood up from his chair so abruptly it scraped against the floor with a sound like a scream. Ms. Lang's cancer detection technology, the anchor continued, has already been adopted by over 340 hospitals nationwide. The FDA-approved platform can identify cancer biomarkers up to 18 months earlier than conventional methods, a breakthrough that medical experts say will save countless lives. And until tonight, virtually no one outside the biotech industry knew who was behind it. I took another bite of pudding. It still wasn't great. "That's you," Alex said. His cardiologist brain was struggling to process data that didn't fit the diagnostic framework he'd built for his sister over 32 years. "That's your face," on CNBC, next to the words $3.4 billion. "It is," I confirmed. My mother hadn't moved since her spoon dropped. She was staring at the television with an expression I'd never seen on her face. It wasn't shock exactly. It was the look of someone watching their entire understanding of their child dissolve and reconstitute in real time. The anchor kept going. They were interviewing an industry analyst now. Meridian Biosciences has accomplished something that most biotech companies only dream of, the analyst said. Full FDA approval, rapid hospital adoption, and now
a NASDAQ listing, all led by a founder who built the company entirely from scratch. Sophie Lang is, without exaggeration, one of the most important biomedical innovators of her generation. My mother's hand went to her mouth. The nursing brochure sat on the table beside my plate, its glossy cover reflecting the chandelier light like an accusation. "Sophie," my father said. His voice was strange, thick, like he was speaking through something solid. $3.4 billion? The company's projected opening valuation, I said. My personal stake is approximately $2.18 billion. The number hung in the air like smoke. $2.18 billion. His daughter. The one he wanted to see settled. The one who needed direction. The one whose mother had brought her a nursing school brochure 20 minutes ago. Alex found his voice. "You founded a biotech company that detects cancer, and it's going public on the NASDAQ. In 11 days, I said. You're all welcome to watch the opening bell ceremony. It'll be on television." "But I don't," he stammered. "You're a consultant. You work from your apartment." "I do work from my apartment sometimes," I said. "I also work from 2 research facilities with 312 employees. It's a flexible arrangement." Lauren made a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a cry. "I offered you a job at Pfizer." "You did," I agreed, and I appreciated it, though I should mention that Pfizer is currently in discussions to license 3 of our patents, so technically they're about to work for me. The CNBC segment continued. They were showing footage of Meridian's labs now. Scientists in white coats, advanced equipment, the diagnostic platform that I'd first prototyped in a shared lab space next to someone studying yeast. "What makes Lang's achievement remarkable," another commentator said, "is that she did it without any institutional backing. No family connections in biotech, no prestigious accelerator program, no famous mentor. She identified a gap in cancer diagnostics, developed proprietary technology to fill it, and built a company that the FDA and now Wall Street have validated as genuinely transformative." No family connections. My mother flinched. My father closed his eyes. Alex stared at his stethoscope tie like it had personally failed him. My phone rang. Marcus. I answered it because I was finished hiding. "Sophie, the CNBC segment is everywhere. Bloomberg just picked it up. Reuters is running their own piece. The Wall Street Journal is holding tomorrow's front page for us. Also, the hospital in Hartford, your first trial site, they just issued a press release. They're naming their new diagnostic wing after you." I looked at Alex while I responded. "Tell Bloomberg I'll do an interview on January 7th, the day after listing. Tell the Journal I'll review their questions tonight. And tell Hartford I'm honored. I'll be there for the dedication." I hung up. My mother finally spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "The brochure," she said. "I brought you a nursing school brochure." "You did?" I said. "You brought me a brochure for a 2-year nursing program because you thought that was the best your daughter could do." While your daughter was 11 days away from ringing the NASDAQ bell for a company worth $3.4 billion. A company that detects cancer, Mom, that saves lives. Not because I have heart instead of brilliance, because I have both. The last 2 words landed like a verdict. Because I have both. Every year of being sorted into the caring category instead of the capable category, every time Alex got brilliant and I got empathetic, every time someone said business isn't for girls and I stayed quiet because the quiet was where I worked. It all distilled into those 3 words: I have both. My mother started crying, not the polite kind, the real kind. The kind that comes from realizing you spent 32 years seeing your daughter through a lens so distorted that you missed everything that mattered. Alex stood up and walked around the table. He stood in front of me and did something he hadn't done since we were children. He hugged me. "I'm sorry," he said into my shoulder, "for every time I treated my career like it was more important than yours. For every time I didn't ask what you were actually working on. For every time I assumed." I hugged him back. "You're a good doctor, Alex. You save lives too. We're not that different." He pulled back, eyes red. "You're saving more of them. And you're doing it without anyone knowing your name. Until now." My father hadn't spoken since the valuation number. He sat at the head of the table, perfectly still, his hands folded in front of him. The insurance man who'd spent his life calculating probabilities had just encountered an outcome he'd never thought to model. "Sophie," he said finally. I looked at him. "I failed you," he said simply. "Not as a father, as a person." I looked at my child and I saw limitations instead of potential. I saw risk instead of capability. And I was wrong. Every single day for 32 years, I was wrong. "That's a long time to be wrong," I said. "It is," he agreed, "and I don't know how to make up for it, but I'd like to try." I picked up the nursing school brochure and handed it back to my mother. "Keep this," I said. "Frame it. Put it on the wall next to whatever they print about me in the Wall Street Journal tomorrow. Let it remind you that the gap between who you thought I was and who I actually am exists because you never asked, not because I never achieved." I put on my coat, the same coat I always wore, the one they all thought I wore because I couldn't afford better. "Where are you going?" Aunt Catherine asked. "Back to New Haven," I said. "I have a NASDAQ listing to prepare for." I paused at the dining room doorway. "Oh, and Mom?" She looked up through tears. "Business isn't for girls." I smiled. "You were right. It's not for girls. It's for women. And this woman just built a company that's going to change how the world fights cancer. So maybe update your brochure collection." The drive home took 47 minutes. I spent the first 20 in silence, letting the enormity of the evening settle around me like snowfall. The remaining 27 I spent on a conference call with Marcus and our legal team, reviewing the final IPO documentation. By midnight, the CNBC segment had been viewed 6 million times online. My inbox contained 847 unread emails. My phone had 43 missed calls, a number that felt poetically appropriate given the 43 patents that had started this journey. Marcus had organized everything into priority tiers: media requests, investor inquiries, partnership proposals, and one folder he'd labeled Family, containing forwarded messages from relatives who'd apparently discovered my company email address through the broadcast. Aunt Catherine's was my favorite. It read simply, "I suggested staff housing. You own a penthouse. I'm never giving advice again." The morning after Christmas, the first call I returned was my mother's. She'd been up all night. I could hear it in her voice, That particular texture of sleeplessness mixed with the residue of tears and the beginning of something new. I read everything she said, every article, every interview, every patent filing. I stayed up until 4 a.m. reading about biosensor arrays. I don't understand most of it, but I understand enough to know that my daughter is saving lives, and I tried to hand her a nursing brochure. "Mom," I said, "I need to tell you something." "Okay." The reason I never told you wasn't just about protecting the company. It was about protecting myself. From what? From hearing you say that a biotech company was too ambitious for me. From watching you redirect the conversation to Alex's accomplishments. From the possibility that even with $224 million in revenue and FDA approval, you'd still find a way to suggest I'd be happier in a more nurturing role. She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "I did that to you." "Yes, and I did it to myself too. I believed it. I believed that brilliance was your brother's department and heart was yours. I divided my own children into categories and never questioned it." She paused. "Where did I learn that?" "The same place everyone learns it," I said. "From the world. But you can unlearn it, starting now." The next 11 days were a controlled explosion of preparation, press, and precision. Every financial outlet wanted the story. The biotech founder who hid in plain sight. The cancer detection pioneer whose family thought she was a freelance consultant. The woman who received a nursing school brochure 11 days before ringing the NASDAQ bell. Bloomberg ran a 30-minute special. The Wall Street Journal devoted their entire Saturday business section to Meridian's story. 3 universities invited me to join their boards. The hospital in Hartford scheduled the diagnostic wing dedication for February. My family watched it all unfold from the outside, processing in their own ways and at their own speeds. Lauren quit her pharmaceutical sales job and enrolled in a biomedical engineering program. She called me the night she submitted her application. "You showed me that women can build the companies," she said, "not just sell for them." Alex started a mentorship program at his hospital specifically for women in medicine and medical technology. He told me it was inspired by the realization that he'd been part of the same system that had underestimated me, and he wanted to actively dismantle it. My father attended every public event related to the IPO. He sat in the front row at the NASDAQ ceremony, watching me ring the opening bell, tears streaming down a face that had spent decades being stoic. He never missed an investor presentation after that. Not because he understood biotech, because he was learning to understand his daughter. My mother framed the nursing school brochure. She hung it in the hallway of their home, right next to the Wall Street Journal front page, exactly as I'd suggested. Below both, she added a small handwritten note that visitors always stopped to read. "My daughter is the founder and CEO of Meridian Biosciences. I gave her a nursing school brochure. She gave the world a way to detect cancer 18 months earlier. I was wrong. She was extraordinary, and I almost missed it." On January 6th at 9:30 a.m., I stood on the podium at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. The screens around me blazed with Meridian's logo and ticker symbol. Below me, a crowd of employees, investors, journalists, and my family watched as I placed my hand on the button. In the seconds before I pressed it, I thought about the shared lab space next to the yeast geneticist, the $32,000 in savings, the 4 years of FDA reviews, the Christmas dinners where I smiled through brochures and career suggestions, and the quiet, constant hum
of underestimation. I pressed the button. The bell rang. The screens lit up with MRDN and the opening price that confirmed a valuation of $3.4 billion. The trading floor erupted in applause, and somewhere in that crowd, my mother was holding a tissue in one hand and her phone in the other, recording every second, finally watching her daughter do the things she'd never imagined was possible. Not because it wasn't possible, because she'd never imagined it for a girl. That night, I sat in my lab, the real one, the one with the equipment and the whiteboards and the half-finished experiments that would become next year's breakthroughs. My phone buzzed, a text from my father, 2 words, both simple, both 32 years overdue. I'm amazed. I typed back, "Stay amazed, Dad. I'm just getting started." Because the truth about business not being for girls is that it was never about business. It was about vision, about who gets to have it, who gets to pursue it, and who gets told to stick to their little crafts while the world waits for someone brave enough to ignore the brochure and build the future instead. The NASDAQ doesn't care about gender. The FDA doesn't care about family expectations. Cancer doesn't care who detects it. And the quiet woman at the end of the Christmas table, the one eating pudding with a nursing school brochure beside her plate, turned out to be the most dangerous person in the room. Not because she was angry, because she was right. And she had the patents to prove it.